The letter arrived in the wrong place. That was the first thing Commander Sarah Voss noticed when she stepped into the Galactic Diplomatic Sorting Hub on Deck 9 of the Eternal Concordance, the Vahari Empire's flagship station orbiting Earth. A small paper envelope, cream-colored and slightly crumpled at one corner, sat on the processing table between a stack of trade manifestos and an interplanetary tariff dispute. It had no official seal.
No quantum signature. No biometric encryption.
Just a child's handwriting in red crayon across the front. To Santa Claus, the North Pole, Earth. Someone had opened it. 3 Vahari diplomatic aides stood near the table. They were tall, silver-skinned, with elongated fingers and eyes the color of deep water. Junior aides, ambitious, fresh from the academy, assigned to administrative processing during the holiday season diplomatic freeze. One of them was holding the letter, reading it aloud. The others were laughing. Sarah stopped walking. She had served 12 years in galactic diplomatic security, 6 of them embedded with the Vahari Empire as a human liaison officer. She knew exactly what their laughter sounded like. The high, clicking sound at the back of the throat. The way the shoulders pulled inward. She also knew what it meant when they laughed at something they didn't understand. The aide holding the letter read another line. His translation module rendered it in Vahari Standard, but something was lost, badly lost, in conversion. The child had written about wanting her father to come home from somewhere called the deployment. She had explained that Santa probably knew what that meant. She had drawn a small picture at the bottom, a man in a uniform standing next to a little girl with pigtails. The aide turned the drawing sideways and said something that made the other 2 laugh harder. Sarah crossed the room in 9 steps. She didn't raise her voice. She never raised her voice on duty. She simply stopped beside the aide, held out her hand, and waited. The laughter died. The aide looked at her, at the expression on her face, which was perfectly still, and placed the letter in her palm. It was misfiled, he said, switching to Earth Standard. Clearly a child's mistake. We were going to discard it. No, Sarah said. You weren't. She looked at the letter. The return address was handwritten in a different ink, slightly smeared. Someone had helped the child write it, then let her do the rest herself. The name on the return address was Maisie Collier, age 7, Fort Bragg Family Housing, Unit 14. Sarah folded the letter carefully, slid it into her interior jacket pocket, and walked to the duty station terminal. She pulled up the hub's intake log. The letter had been scanned into the system 6 hours ago when a routine diplomatic courier packet arrived from Earth. It had been automatically flagged as non-official correspondence and routed to manual review, which meant these 3 aides had been sitting on it for 6 hours, laughing at it on and off for who knew how long. She logged the incident. Every keystroke. Every name. Then, she pulled up a secondary record and searched for any other non-official correspondence that had come through the hub in the past 30 days. She found 11 more items. 2 birthday cards. A hand-drawn map of someone's backyard sent to a grandmother. Several holiday letters. All flagged. None forwarded. All sitting in a digital limbo labeled non-priority, pending disposal. She copied every file. Behind her, the senior aide cleared his throat. Commander Voss. Regulations regarding personal correspondence and official diplomatic channels are, I know the regulations, she said. Then, you understand this station isn't authorized to forward civilian mail. I understand a great many things, she said, and logged out of the terminal. She walked to the door, stopped, and turned back. The 3 aides were watching her with the careful, measured stillness of people who knew they'd done something wrong and were calculating how wrong. The child who wrote that letter, Sarah said, has a father currently serving on a joint human-Vahari security detail in the Outer Reach. He volunteered for the posting. He was the one who helped negotiate the communications blackout protocol your government insisted on last spring. She let that land. She wrote to Santa because she doesn't know where else to write. She drew a picture because she misses him. None of them said anything. I'm going to make sure that letter gets where it's going, Sarah said. And I'm going to make sure every item in that non-priority queue gets reviewed and properly handled. And I'm going to submit a full incident report to Ambassador Thiel by end of shift. She paused at the door. Have a productive afternoon. She stepped into the corridor, and the door sealed behind her with a soft, pressurized click. The letter in her pocket felt heavier than paper had any right to feel. Ambassador Thiel was not easy to find. Sarah had worked with her for 3 years and still could not predict where the Queen's appointed representative would be at any given hour. Thiel was Vahari, old-blood aristocracy, third lineage of the Concordance's founding houses, but she moved through the station like she was always slightly ahead of wherever protocol said she should be. She had an instinct for arriving exactly when something important was about to happen, and an equally precise instinct for being somewhere else entirely when things were merely tedious. Sarah found her in the observation gallery on Deck 12. Thiel stood alone at the curved view port, her reflection ghosted against the black. Below, Earth turned slowly, cloud-streaked and blue, ancient and wholly indifferent to the politics orbiting above it. The ambassador had her hands clasped behind her back, her silver robes perfectly still even as the ventilation currents moved through the gallery. She didn't turn when Sarah entered. "Commander Voss," she said. "You're off rotation." I was. Something came up. "Something always does with you." Thiel's tone wasn't unkind. It was precise. She turned from the viewport and looked at Sarah with those deep, still eyes. "You've already logged an incident report." "Yes. I received the notification 4 minutes ago." She tilted her head slightly. 3 junior aides. Non-official correspondence. 6 hours. 11 pieces total in the past 30 days. All sitting in the disposal queue. Something shifted in Thiel's expression. Not anger. Vahari didn't wear anger the way humans did. It was more like a door closing very quietly in a very large house. "Show me." Sarah extended the data chip. Thiel took it, pressed it to the reader on her wrist panel, and reviewed the queue in silence. Her face remained composed. Only her left hand moved, a single, slow press of 2 fingers together, a Vahari gesture Sarah had learned to recognize. It meant something between "this is unacceptable" and "I am already calculating consequences." The item should have been forwarded through civilian channels within 24 hours of intake, Thiel said. That's station protocol. The aides were aware of this. They were. And they chose to treat the correspondence as entertainment. Sarah didn't answer. She didn't need to. Thiel handed the chip back. "I'll handle the disciplinary review. The items in the queue will be forwarded before end of shift." She paused. "Is there something specific you came to ask me?" Sarah reached into her jacket pocket and placed the letter on the railing between them. Thiel looked at it, at the crayon writing, the slightly crumpled corner, the small smear of ink on the return address where an adult hand had steadied a child's uncertain grip. "This one requires more than forwarding," Sarah said. Thiel picked up the letter. She unfolded it with the same deliberate care she gave to trade treaties and ceasefire accords. She read it twice. Sarah watched her eyes move across the child's words, across the drawing at the bottom, the uniformed man, the little girl with pigtails, the lopsided star drawn above them both. The silence in the gallery was complete. "Her father," Thiel said finally. "Sergeant Daniel Collier. Joint Human Vahari Outer Reach Security Detail. Communications blackout since October per the protocol your government negotiated. His daughter doesn't know why she can't reach him. She's 7. Thiel refolded the letter. She did not give it back. She held it for a moment in both hands, and then she said something in Old Vahari, low, under her breath, that Sarah's translation module rendered imperfectly as a child's honesty is the sharpest document in any room. "What do you need?" Thiel asked. "Access to the Outer Reach communication relay. A single message window. 5 minutes. Enough for Sergeant Collier to record something his daughter can receive on Christmas morning. The blackout protocol is a security measure." "I know. Circumventing it requires authorization from the Joint Security Council and a minimum 48-hour review period." "I know that too." Thiel looked at her steadily. "Then, you also know that I cannot simply authorize this on your request." "No," Sarah said. "But you could bring it to Her Majesty." The silence returned. Longer this time. Outside the viewport, Earth kept turning, unhurried, carrying 7 billion people and all their letters and drawings and handwritten maps of backyards, all their things sent toward people they missed, orbiting through the dark. Her Majesty, Thiel said carefully, does not involve herself in station administrative matters. She involves herself in anything she considers meaningful. Thiel's gaze was unreadable. Then, she looked down at the letter still held in her hands, and, something in her posture, barely perceptible, a fraction of degree, changed. I have an audience scheduled with Her Majesty tomorrow morning, she said. Tonight would be better, Sarah said. Another silence. Then, Thiel said, Wait here. She walked to the gallery door, stopped, and turned back. Commander Voss. The letter. She extended it. Sarah started to reach for it. Thiel did not let go immediately. She held it a moment longer, both of them holding the envelope in the gallery's cold light, Earth reflected in the viewport behind them. A child wrote to someone she believes can do the impossible, Thiel said quietly. I find that instructive. She released the letter and walked out. Sarah stood alone in the gallery, the letter in her hand, and waited. Queen Vahari Solon III held court only in the presence of her royal guard and her first ambassador. She had not broken that tradition in 40 years of reign. Protocol was not decoration for her. It was architecture, the structure that held power in its proper shape. So when Ambassador Thiel appeared at the royal chamber door at 2200 hours requesting an unscheduled audience, the guard commander, a veteran named Kale, who had served the Queen for 22 years, said nothing. He simply stepped aside and sent word through the chamber's interior the Queen saw Thiel alone. Sarah was not permitted in the chamber. She stood in the corridor outside with Kale, who stood at parade rest with the absolute stillness of someone who had made a discipline of patience. He didn't speak. She didn't either. The corridor was quiet except for the distant hum of the station circulation systems and, somewhere far below in the residential decks, the faint sound of a human holiday broadcast someone had forgotten to mute. 12 minutes passed. The chamber door opened. Thiel stepped out. Her face gave nothing away, but she looked at Sarah with those deep eyes and said, Her Majesty wishes to see the letter. Sarah blinked once. The letter. She wants to read it herself. Sarah looked at Kale. He was already moving, gesturing toward the chamber door with the precise economy of someone who did not repeat himself. She followed, stepping across the threshold into a room that smelled of cold mineral air and old wood, genuine wood, brought from somewhere neither of them would ever name aloud. Queen Solon sat behind a desk that held nothing except a single reading lamp and an open policy brief she had closed when they entered. She was smaller than her portrait suggested, compact, contained, her silver-white hair held back with a single clasp, her robe simpler than anything her aides wore. She looked at Sarah the way she looked at everything, without hurry, without performance, without the need to announce her own authority. Sarah crossed the room and placed the letter on the desk. The Queen read it. All of it. The crayon words. The explanation about the deployment. The hope that Santa understood. She held the drawing of the man and the little girl up slightly toward the lamp, and she looked at the lopsided star above them both for a long moment. Then she set it down. Sergeant Collier, she said. Yes, Your Majesty. He's been on blackout since October. My government's protocol. Yes. She was quiet. Not the quiet of someone searching for words, the quiet of someone who had already decided and was simply letting the decision settle into place before she spoke it. The communications blackout, she said, was designed to protect operational security along the outer reach perimeter. It was not designed to prevent a child from knowing her father is alive. She folded her hands on the desk. This is not the same thing. It should never have been treated as the same thing. No, Your Majesty. 5 minutes, the Queen said, and looked at Thiel. Authorize the relay window. Sergeant Collier is to have 5 minutes to record a message for personal delivery to his daughter. Christmas morning, Earth Standard Time. She paused. And the other items in the queue. Birthday cards. Letters. All of it. Forward them tonight. Yes, Your Majesty. The Queen looked back at Sarah. There was something in her expression, controlled, precise, but, beneath it, something that recognized the weight of a child handwriting, the specific gravity of a drawing made by someone who did not yet know that the world could fail them. Commander Voss, she said. Your incident report cited 3 junior aides. Yes, Your Majesty. They read this letter for entertainment. Yes. She touched the edge of the paper with one finger. They will complete a full rotational assignment in the Hub Civilian Correspondence Division. 60 days. Manual processing. Every item reviewed and properly handled before end of each shift. Her voice was quiet and absolute. They will understand what correspondence means before they are permitted to touch it again. Yes, Your Majesty. The Queen picked up the letter. She held it for a moment, then extended it to Sarah. See that it reaches her. Sarah took it. Thank you, Your Majesty. Don't thank me, the Queen said simply. A child sent this into the dark hoping someone capable would receive it. Someone capable did. She returned her gaze to the policy brief on her desk. That is not extraordinary. That is the minimum requirement of anyone in this room. Sarah walked out of the chamber with the letter in her hand and Cale closing the door behind her with the soft, definitive click of something properly sealed. The relay window opened at 0300 station time. Sarah stood outside the communications bay while the connection was established, listening to the technical officers run the sequence. The outer reach relay took 4 minutes to lock, a long 4 minutes, the kind where you became aware of the distance between places, the actual physical silence of space between a child asleep in Fort Bragg housing and a soldier standing watch at the edge of charted territory. Then, the lock confirmed. Sergeant Daniel Collier appeared on the screen inside the bay. He was thinner than his file photo. He had a week of beard and tired eyes and the particular stillness of someone who had been holding himself carefully together for a long time. When the technical officer told him he had a personal message window, 5 minutes, Christmas delivery, his daughter's name, he didn't say anything for a moment. He just pressed his fist against his mouth and breathed. Sarah didn't watch the recording. She walked to the end of the corridor and stood at the small porthole there, looking out at the dark. She thought about Maisie Collier, age 7, who had written a letter to a mythological figure because she had run out of other options, who had drawn a picture of what she wanted most because words had not felt sufficient, who had put it in an envelope and addressed it in red crayon and sent it into the world on pure, uncalculated faith that someone would know what to do with it. She thought about the 3 aides laughing. She thought about the Queen touching the edge of the paper with one careful finger. She thought about Thiel standing at the viewport, holding the letter with both hands like it was a treaty. Behind her, the bay door opened. The technical officer stepped out. Recording complete. Commander. Encrypted and queued for Christmas morning delivery. Earth Standard 0700. Thank you, Sarah said. She turned back to the porthole. Earth was visible from this angle, just the curve of it, the blue edge of it catching the distant sun. Somewhere on that blue edge was a housing unit with a number on the door and a bed where a 7-year-old was asleep, still waiting, the way children wait, completely, without reservation, with a trust that the world does not always deserve but, sometimes, on the thinnest margin, manages to earn. Sarah reached into her jacket pocket and took out the letter one more time. She had folded it back into its envelope. She looked at the crayon address, at the small smear of ink, at the name written carefully in the top left corner. Maisie Collier, age 7. She placed it back in her pocket. Then, she walked to the outgoing diplomatic courier station, pulled up the personal mail queue, found the digital copy of all 11 items that had been sitting in the disposal queue, and personally verified each one for immediate forwarding. 2 birthday cards. 1 grandmother's map. 8 holiday letters. All of them sent before 0400 station time, moving now at the speed of light toward the people who had been waiting for them without knowing they were lost. When she filed the final confirmation, she sat for a moment in the quiet of the empty office. Somewhere in the station, 3 junior aides were receiving notification of their reassignment. Somewhere in the outer reach, a sergeant was finishing a recorded message he had not known he would get to send. Somewhere in Fort Bragg housing, a little girl was asleep with no idea that an alien queen had held her drawing up to the light and looked at the lopsided star above 2 figures in crayon, and decided that was enough. Sarah stood, straightened her jacket, and walked out into the corridor. The station hummed around her, full of the business of civilizations, treaties and tariffs and security protocols and all the immense machinery of people learning, slowly and imperfectly and with enormous effort, how to exist together across impossible distances. And, somewhere in the middle of all of it, a letter was moving toward its destination, carrying a soldier's voice to a little girl's Christmas morning, arriving exactly where it was always supposed to go. It had taken a queen, an ambassador, a commander, a communications relay, and, for minutes of lock time. But, it was going to get there .202.